Hi everyone, this is Cheryl from the Sewing Basket. We are back with block 15 today. So this is going to be a modified cat's cradle. So the last block or two we've been working with the cat's cradle block, but this one we're still going to have that half a triangle, but we're going to be working with a little bit different configuration on the other side of the triangle. So for this one you're going to need a large square that we're going to be cutting both of these pieces from this one square. And then we're going to need a medium-sized square for your background. We're going to be cutting that in half diagonally. And then we're going to be using a little bit smaller square for this little corner. So first I'm going to talk about the cutting a little bit. So with your large square, we'll be able to get, when we cut it in half, we'll have one half is going to be for our big triangle, and then we're going to be able to get that smaller square out of the other half of this square. One thing I want to show you is a lot of times if you're trying to take your ruler and just line it up corner to corner, you can get a shadow or it's hard to see depending upon the color of your fabric to your mat exactly where to line that up to cut it with the corners. So if you have a mat that has a 45-degree line on it, and I take that line and I find a spot where it intersects with my perpendicular lines, I can lay the corner of my block right along that 45-degree line, make sure it's lined up in this corner with the same 45-degree line on my mat. And now when I lay my ruler here, I can look at that line on my mat versus the corners of my block. So sometimes it can just be a little easier to get that cut using the lines on the ruler rather than just the corners of the block. So I'm going to cut my square in half, and I'm going to set this triangle aside. So this triangle will be for this large one up here. To get this square, I'm going to take the other half and I'm going to turn it. So I'm working with this 90-degree corner. And out of here, I can line up my 2.5-inch line along the side and along the bottom. And you can see I'm kind of coming right to the edge, but I can fit this block out of here. So I'm going to cut up here, and I'm going to cut across here, and then I'm just going to pull these two away, and that's going to give me my square for down here. So that'll create those two pieces. So this is the only extra that you have that you're going to be setting aside. Okay? Then for these two squares, again, I'm going to take my medium-sized square. If you want, you can line it up again in a corner along that diagonal. And I'm going to be cutting this in half. So I'm going to need 4 squares this size that I cut in half. And then I'm going to take the smaller square and cut that one in half. And then we'll have all of our pieces ready for assembly. Alright, so the way this block is assembled, I'm going to put it like this. So the last time we did it, we had our square and our large triangle, and our square was kind of set on point, perpendicular with our big triangle, and then we placed in these two smaller triangles. For this one, I'm going to have my large triangle, but my square is going to be set straight against there, not on point. I'm going to add in those same two triangles, but then I need to add this little one in to fill in the space. So when I do that, I'm going to have these two, and then this one. So if you think of this almost looking like a pine tree, this is my tree, this is my trunk. And then I'm going to take these and I'm going to have, so I'm creating a straight that's going along there. So I'm going to have the point of my triangle at this corner, and then I'm going to have the point of another triangle at the opposite corner. So I'm kind of creating straight across. The last time we did it, I needed the back side of my triangle to create my straight, and I was on two adjacent sides. This time I'm on two opposite sides, and I'm using the side of my triangle to create my straight seam for my middle. So we'll be sewing those two together, or those three together, and then I'm going to come back, and with the smallest triangle I need to add that onto here to create the finished other half of my half square triangle. So I'm going to go sew these pieces together, and then I'll be back to talk about trimming up. Okay, so I have my different pieces sewn together, and I'm going to show you some different options for squaring things up. Just depends if you want to do it before you sew your halves together or after you sew your halves together. So if you want to square this piece up ahead of time before you sew this piece on, you can do that. And the way you're going to do it is, again, I'm going to have that diagonal line be in my corner, and I'm going to double check that my 1/4 inch is right at the tip of my square. So my blue square, I want that 1/4 inch line right at the tip of my square, and I want to be able to have this tip of my ruler close to my corner. And then I'm just going to trim off these little edges. I have you cut this triangle a little bit bigger so you have something to trim off. Makes it much easier to square up. Then once I have this trimmed up, now I can put these two pieces together and sew it. So when you're done sewing, kind of as a double check, they should be basically the same size, your triangles. Okay? This large triangle, again, will be slightly bigger so that you have just a little something to trim off, but basically they should be the same size. So I can trim this pieced half and then add it onto my triangle. If I do it that way, so this was already trimmed, then I added my triangle on, but I still need to square up this corner where my large triangle was. So now I can take my ruler, because this one was already squared up, I can put my ruler right on that 4.5, going across the side and my bottom, and then I can just trim off the little bit of extra on my side and top. So there's going to be my squared up 4.5 inch block. If you prefer, you can sew these two together before you square up this half, but you just have to make sure that you're still going to be trimming off of both sides. What you don't want to do is say it's together and put your 4.5 right in this corner right away, because that was a little bit bigger. If I do that, the tip of this red square is at my 1/8 inch line, and then I'm going to be chopping off the points of that square. So I still need to, I can have that diagonal line going straight, which having the square sewn together gives me a little bit better view, but I still need to scoot it up and make sure that that 1/4 inch mark is at the points of my square, and I'm going to have a little bit extra of my red triangle down here, so I can trim this off first, and then rotate it, and then trim the other side. So now I'm going to put my 4.5 on this side, double check my diagonal is going corner to corner, and square it up. So you can do it either way. I tend to sew them together first and then square up the whole block, but if you want to try doing it both ways and see which works better for you, you can. I'm going to go to the machine and finish sewing this one, and then I'll be back to give you some options for putting the block together. Alright, so here's my last block. I had already squared up this side, but I still need to trim my large triangle. So again, putting that 4.5 in my corners. All right. So there are my 4 blocks that I have to work with this block number 15. So with my sample, I had all of my large triangles pointing to the center. So these are my other ones from my other groupings. This was my 12 fat quarters, and then this was my scrappy from just out of my stash, my bin. Okay, but I always had it be with the 4 large triangles pointing to the middle. You can do that, but remember that this type of a block that gives you that half and half gives you other options. So typically I would put my 2 blues opposite, my 2 reds opposite, and sew it together. If you want, you can play around with your blocks. You could put them like this and put those little triangles to the middle. Just going to give you a little bit different design, almost a little bit of a cross looking. Your background fabric almost tends to be the focal point when you do that. You could do where all of your large triangles are pointed in the same direction. Okay, you could do something like that again, where it gives you, this time instead of those blocks going corner to corner, you kind of get this little up and down look. So play around with your blocks, see which way you like it. It really doesn't matter, it's your block. You can sew it together however you want. The pattern does suggest putting them to the middle, but I look forward to seeing all the different designs being posted on Facebook of the choices you make. So I hope this is a fun one for you, and we'll see you next time. Bye!